families, creating a lifetime of memories. Sadly, some families are denied these important moments due to the sad practice of alienation. These are families divided.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Families Divided TV. Parental alienation hurts everyone involved. The targeted parent is emotionally distraught as they watch their child slip away from them. Grandparents are devastated when their precious grandchildren reject them, or some, like us, having never met them. Siblings, cousins, and family friends feel their own loss while they watch their beloved family members suffer. While the alienated child may be boastful of their actions, grandiose in their decisions while they behave with complete entitlement and lack of remorse for what they are doing, they are the real victims of parental alienation. Sometimes we forget that our child is the true victim and our grandchildren as well, as we try to piece together our own shattered egos. There are ways to manage your own feelings of hurt and betrayal while you address what is really happening, and that is the child and grandchild are being used, weaponized, and victimized. Once a severely alienated target, Susan Shofer put her ego aside to successfully diffuse the alienation. Susan Shofer is going to be speaking to us tonight about the very important subject of keeping your ego out of parental alienation and grandparent alienation resolution. I know you're going to enjoy it, and please pay close attention. We'll be right back with Susan right after these messages.
Divorce and co-parenting are a major life interruption for families, especially the kids, but also for parents and grandparents. And it's even worse in blame-filled, high-conflict cases. When parents engage in alienation by turning the kids against the other parent or grandparents, kids suffer. They're denied the opportunity to build the 4 big skills necessary for future resilience. New Ways for Families online class can help. Parents learn to use our popular BIF and EAR skills to calm the conflict and stop the hostile emails and texts. And we even have a class for kids and parents to learn together. Research shows a 75% improvement in joint parental decision-making after this course is taken, plus overall improvements for kids' well-being. Don't wait to make this affordable investment in your children's future and improve your well-being too. Start learning new ways for your family today at conflictplaybook.com.
I am so pleased to be here. And before I begin, I want to say a special thank you to Elaine for having me. I'm really happy to be here. Before I begin, I want to state that I'm going to make some general statements today with the knowledge that everybody's situation is different. And while there are many similarities when it comes to parental alienation, there are differences, such as the ages of the children when the alienation begins, the sex of the children, the relationship the children have with the targeted parent before the alienation starts, as well as the relationship they have with the alienator before the alienation starts. A child who's vulnerable to alienation at 5 may not be vulnerable at age 12 or 15, and vice versa. What we do know is that the alienator becomes laser focused on which child they can alienate and how. The way we approach alienation is also different depending on the nature of the alienation. Some people don't see their children at all. What I'm going to talk about today is for those people who do see their children, no matter how horrible the relationship seems to be or how it seems to be going in the wrong direction. Is your child still speaking to you? Will they visit with you sporadically? When they visit with you, are they rude and dismissive? Does that change over the days? Meaning they start the visit with you and they're really kind of crummy to you, and then they suddenly get nice in the middle? Do they become physically violent with you. Some alienated kids do. Is the parent or the alienating parent online with your child? And what I mean by that is the child connected to that parent through a phone, through a watch, an iPad, or other electronic device so that the alienating parent is directing them on what to do next? Or are they reporting back to the alienating parent? Basically, child spying on you. All of these scenarios are terrible. They emotionally crush us. Our feelings are hurt. How could they not be? No one ever prepared us for having children and then have our children reject us. It's just not the normal foundation of parent-child relationships. And while I cannot speak to the psychology of parental alienation because I'm not a therapist, I'm not a mental health professional, I can share from my vast experience as a longtime divorce consultant, coach, and a private investigator. I've worked alongside many divorce attorneys, of which all of them have had parental alienation or high conflict divorces that are so horrible. They're the grisliest. And high conflict divorce almost always has moderate to malignant alienation tied to it. I've also had the privilege to learn from several judges about their views on parental alienation and the roles that parents have, both parents, in this heinous crime. I've testified hundreds of hours in a variety of cases, and I used to say the courtroom was my second office. So I've seen a lot of this over the years, decades actually. Today, I'm going to speak about how our egos get involved in parental alienation and the possibility that we may hurt our situation without knowing it. Now, this is not placing blame on anyone. Actually, the targeted parent responds to parental alienation in a normal way. But here's the problem. Parental alienation isn't normal. It's anything but. So when I ask people to define parental alienation, usually when I do workshops or I'm speaking to a large group, I will receive a variety of answers. And the most common one is that parental alienation is when a child rejects a loving parent and also the grandparents, a parent or grandparents who have no history of abuse or neglect with the child, and the rejection is often precipitated or encouraged by an alienating parent, usually in a divorce situation, not always, but usually. And many times it happens not just during the divorce, it may show up months or even years after the divorce. And while this is a tried and true answer and accepted all the time and universally, there's more to the equation than what meets the eye. I agree with this definition that I just shared with you, and I use it all the time, but I have it in addition to the definition. And that is that parental alienation primarily occurs when the alienated child believes that one parent, the alienator, the one they're aligned to, needs more of them than the targeted parent does. And there's a second part to this, and that is the child has made the decision on their own accord without any coercion or suggestion at all from anybody. And their rejection is solely on their own, the rejection of the targeted parent. But keep in mind, they think, they believe that the alienating parent needs them. You see, alienators put a lot of pressure on their children, and these children want to please them. Oftentimes, these parents will guilt their children in order to get them enmeshed with them by a whole host of different tactics. Many of you know what they are. Some are by brute force, and others, they make promises to these kids, or they give them gifts, shower them with things, take them on trips, that kind of thing. But the ones I see more often are when the alienators act as lonely souls and rely heavily on the child for emotional and sometimes physical support. And I do this kind of like boohoo kind of presentation because this is how they present to the children. They tell the child how sad and alone they are when the child's not around. They will tell the child that they count the minutes for when they are to see the child again. I've even had clients where the alienating parent told the child that when they're gone, with the targeted parent, they consider killing themselves. Can you imagine? I mean, that's just a horrible thing. And this makes the child feel guilty when they leave to spend time with the other parent. Sometimes they give the child the impression that they can't live or function without the child. And while this is a lot of pressure to put on a child, it's also a heavy burden And so the child translates this dynamic as love and not manipulation. I've seen children not attend their senior proms. They will turn down offers for travel, maybe with their schools or sports teams, maybe not join clubs or sports. Some of them have not even gone to college because the alienator can't, claims they can't be alone. And while all of this is going on and the targeted parent is being distanced from the child, targeted parents often get what I call stuck in the hardware. Let me repeat that, stuck in the hardware. And what that means is they become focused about their time with the child being violated and that their child is being rude to them. If they still see their child, they will have documented violations, as well as notes galore about what is said and done to them by the alienator and also the child. And I get it. I get it. You need to have all of this for your attorney as evidence. Remember, I was a longtime private investigator whose job was to gather evidence. I get the importance of it. But what happens is our egos get so caught up in, look what they're doing to me, meaning the child and the alienator, versus what's really happening to the child. So let me backtrack for a second. And I want to make it very clear that many times the targeted parents just don't see what's happening. Their egos are getting shattered, but they're not to blame for any of this. Okay? How can they not, can they be blamed? How can any of us be blamed? Remember, this is not normal. But what happens when we get in these situations, we allow our egos to rule what we say and do, all unconsciously. It's normal, but remember, parental alienation is not normal. So we say things like, I don't have time with my child. My child is being awful to me. My child is being kept from me. My ex is keeping my child from me. I shouldn't have to deal with this from my own kid. And suddenly it turns into, from what's really good for the child to our ego is being harmed. Let's face it, how could it not be? On the other hand, we should, try to push our ego to the side a little bit when dealing with the situation. So we're shrouded by this hurt and we forget how hurt the child is or how much they're being hurt, having been placed in this situation, one they didn't ask for. And yet, here they are, doing all the bidding for a person who probably has a borderline personality disorder and wants to control you by weaponizing your child, their child. How awful. Let's remember that you're hurt, but you're a grown up. The child's being harmed, not only by not having a relationship with you or their grandparents or their sisters and brothers and aunts and uncles and cousins, but you, the targeted parent, are the one who's being hurt. But yet you have to stand back and watch what's really happening. And that is they're being groomed not only to have poor conflict resolution skills forever, but they're also learning how to be entitled and to be a bully, to push people around who don't want or do what they say. I always say alienating parents don't parent. Nah, they don't. They use their children as ways to hurt the targeted parent no matter what it takes. They don't care what they're doing to the child. They'll claim they love the child more than anything in the world, and yet, voila, look at what they do. So let's circle back to the ego-driven things we may say, which, when looked at from a different perspective, if we use a different approach with our child, they may view us differently, and it helps surely to bring down our blood pressure. So today I'm going to give you 3 different approaches to things that all alienated parents have said or say that are more ego-driven, and the ways to maybe counter them more than we normally do. There's so many that I've seen, but I've narrowed it down to the 3 that I've seen quite frequently. And also, I don't want to burden you with a lot of stuff to remember today. So here goes the 3 most frequently ego-driven things that I see that alienated parents do. The first one is questioning the child. So we often will say things when we're with our children and we're hurt and we're upset and we're in despair. Things such as, can't you see what your dad's doing? Can't you see what your mom's doing? Don't you see that your mother's keeping you from me? Can't you see that your dad is interfering with my time with you? We used to have such a great relationship and now we don't. Or, you know why things are so bad? This is because your mother, dot, dot, dot. And then you go into the details of whatever's happening. We don't mean to, but we're stuck. We don't know what to do. And this is ego driven. Look what's happening to me. This is not a great conversation to have with your child because they don't know what's happening. If anything, they will perceive you as blaming the parent who they've aligned with. This is the parent who has told them you're unsafe, you are someone to fear. And if they get the feeling that you are blaming the good parent, your questions, as innocent as they may be, will only serve to backfire. So you don't want to say anything. If you're spending time with your child, spend it the best way that you can. Enjoy the moments. Step back and remember that, they're kids. You can only imagine the indoctrination that they're getting from their parent, and you don't want to feed into it. So I want to share a quick example of a client that I had years ago, no names, no locations, but his concern was he wasn't spending ample time with his child. And he was just determined to let this child know, look what your mother's doing, look what your mother's doing, look what your mother's doing. And that backfired because the truth was, although he had what he considered limited time with his child, he wanted more time. He wanted 50-50, and all he had was 30-70. So that 30% of the time he used it, letting this child know, we just don't have the time together. I can't parent you the way I should. I want to be the best dad I can be with you, but I just can't because I don't have 50-50. And I said to him at the time, I said, this is very ego driven because the truth is many people don't see their children at all. They would take 5 minutes. They would take 10 minutes. 30% of the time or co-parenting would seem like such a gift. So why would we throw this gift away? Because to the child, no, it doesn't make a difference. And instead of using the 4 hours twice a week or whatever it was at the time to really nurture a relationship with his child, he was hurting it by his own ego that just couldn't get out of the way enough to say, you know what, whatever time I have with my child, let's use it to the best benefit. And instead, and well-meaning, he actually pushed her away further. And I'm not saying that you're doing this or anybody does this, but just keep in mind if you're having this conversation with your children, they just don't understand what's really happening. So just back off, use this time, enjoy the moments. I can promise you 10 years down in the future, you won't remember whether you had 4 hours or 8 hours or 10 hours. What you will remember is the time that you have with your child. The second ways that our egos may get in the way that I see pretty frequently is the time question. Time question that we give to our kids. And it kind of goes like this. I can't believe your dad's taking you during my time. This isn't fair what's happening to me. This is supposed to be my time with you and I'm not getting it. He took you. Or, you're supposed to be at my house on Saturday mornings, but now it's 6 o'clock and this is when your mother's bringing you back. This is not cool. Or a lot of times parents will say, and kindly, something like, you need to remember the courts made this time schedule for your father or mother to agree, and now they're not. This is going to have to stop. I'm going to have to call my lawyer because, you're supposed to be here during my time. Okay, so the issue is, whether the child is 5 or 15, they don't have a concept of your time when it comes to time sharing. They just don't. And an 8-year-old doesn't know the difference, really, whether dad has 12 days out of the month and mom has 18. So when you're fighting about this is the egos going. This is not about the child because they just don't know. All they really know is they're kind of getting shuffled around. They may get used to it, but having this conversation makes no sense to them. And more importantly, they have no control over the situation. Remember something, you're no longer with the former spouse or partner. You've gotten away from them, but these children spend time with both parents, hopefully, if you're not fully alienated. So while parenting time is important, shuffling children between homes is just not optimal. Something we have to do is it's just part of divorce. Not everything with divorce is optimal, but you want to make the dual living situation as easy as possible for them. And discussing shared parenting time with them is senseless and only makes them not want to come to your home, especially if they know that the topic is going to be addressed by you because they know they're helpless. Recently, I had a client who has a young son, 7 or 8, and the dad has something like 10 days a month, the mom has 20, and co parenting has been simple, no problems, until the dad got a girlfriend. And the dad's girlfriend said to the young boy, I don't know why your mom has more time with you than your dad. And that set up a whole chain of problems because this child had no clue. I mean, if you say to an 8-year-old, 7-year-old, 9-year-old, so what's your parenting, your parents' scheduled time sharing? They don't know. They'll say things like, well, I go to mom's and then go to dad's. I go to dad's like on Saturday, but like sometimes they don't know. So why are we having this conversation? And I've seen parents fight over 50-50 custody. You know, a parent may have 40 and the other parent has 60. Maybe they agreed to that originally. Now they're fighting about it and they drag the kids into it. They also spend tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees for this fight. And what good comes out of it? Is this really about what's good for the kids? Or is this one's ego getting bruised because they feel as though they have the lesser time? And who is really suffering? If you're having this fight with your ex, how much of it is shared? And while you may say to the children, I just want more time with you because I love you, is this because it's really better for them to have that extra 5 hours a week? Or is this your ego speaking? So think about this. Again, if you're still talking to your children and they're belligerent with you and you're arguing and they're refusing to see you, this is not a conversation you want to have because it's just going to add fuel to the flame. Okay. And the third thing, and this is big. This is big. I saved the third for last out of the 3 things that I see pretty consistently where people's egos get in the situation. So listen up. And that is arguing at transfer, which is a stage for all these disputes to kind of tumble out in full view of the kids. So maybe your ex at transfer starts an argument or is disrespectful to you or starts cussing you out or saying awful things. Then what happens, what I call the appropriate police. We become the appropriate police. Your spouse starts cussing you out, calling you names, things like that. And in front of the children, okay, it's awful, right? You know, you're just trying to get the kids in the car and your ex calls you, you know, the B word, you know, or says, you know, your girlfriend's a piece of you know what. And, you know, the kids are right there. And what do? Well, we break into what I call the appropriate police. We say things like, you know, this is really disrespectful to talk this way in front of the children. This is not okay. This hurts our children. We should not speak like this. So, in other words, we sort of put ourselves on this anti bully pulpit and we stand on it. And I get it. That's a normal thing we would do. Okay. Normal, right? Our kids hear somebody cuss us out, call us names. We're not going to take that. We're going to stand up for ourselves, right? Ego. Okay. In this situation, we're going to show our children. We're going to demonstrate. I don't take that. But this is a different situation, right? And honestly, all the kids here is arguing. They don't see a targeted parent standing up for themselves as they're trying to convey what's happening. If anything, they will receive a narrative from the alienating parent about how bossy you are, how controlling you are. Look at you. You're trying to teach a lesson. You know, you think you're better than everybody. All of a sudden, you know what's right and what's wrong. And that can just push the children further away to align with the alienating parent. Okay. I know this seems crazy. It seems nuts because, well, let's face it, parental alienation is crazy. It's nuts. But how we respond to it is oftentimes even nuttier. Not because we're nuts, we're normal. I get it. You're normal. And you're trying to figure this out. You want to set a good message for your children. You want to teach your children, hey, don't let anybody just talk to you disrespectfully. Don't let anybody put you down. Don't let anybody call your name. Stand up for yourself. Be assertive. We want to send that message, but this is not under normal circumstances. Remember, nothing's normal about parental alienation. Absolutely nothing. So what do? You're going to say, Susan, what do you do? The best plan of action is to just walk away. Okay, so when your former spouse starts with the mouthing off, you don't have to say things like, this is inappropriate. Let's talk about this when the children aren't around. This is not something to discuss with the children. This is all wrong. This is disrespectful to me. Nah, just walk away. And you can actually add, okay, nice to see you again. Gotta go. Or thank you. See you next week. Come on, kids, get in the car. Now, when you're not arguing with the person, first of all, you're bringing it down. You're basically, by your actions, saying, well, let's take this from you. You don't have to get on the anti-bully pulpit. You just say, no, see, let's go. And they're not getting whatever narcissistic supply, if they're narcissistic, which they may be, I don't know, who cares? They're getting something out of it by getting a rise out of you, then just don't do it. Because if they know that they can get to you, every single transfer will look like this. It always will. Sometimes they'll film it. You're reacting and they're saying things such as, I don't know why she's not, didn't say anything. And listen, she's giving me, or he, if you just walk away from it, it's stunning how you train them. They're not going to listen to it. That's the best way to get the respect. Recently, I spoke to an adult male who was once an alienated child, and he told me that his father used to say terrible things to his mother when they used to have exchange. And he said it was always at McDonald's. And he said in the parking lot, and he said he remembered the whole way to meet his mom. He was just tied up in knots. And he said they'd get to McDonald's and his father would start and he'd call his mother names and all this. And he said, you know what? I thought my mom was so nice. And I said, she was nice to that. What do you mean? He said, well, she just didn't say anything. He said, no matter what my dad said, my mom made no remorse. He said, and it was so easy for us because I could not wait to get out of my dad's car and into my mom's because she was just cool and calm. He didn't see it as though his mom was being beaten up on and she wasn't standing up for herself. What he saw was, because remember, these are kids, folks. These are little guys. Even if they're teenagers, they're still children. What he saw is dad's carrying on like a yard dog. Mom just goes, come on, guys, let's get in the car. Makes it a lot easier than, oh my gosh, dad's fighting, yelling at mom, mom's arguing back, and this goes back and forth. And if you guys are fighting and carrying on, the kids are just going from the frying pan, one car, into a fire, the other car. And if this kind of banter continues, it just provides fuel for the child to not want to go to transfer, which will alienate further. Okay, so this brings me to two more things, and that is, how do judges see the situation? Oftentimes we have to go into the court system with this. And during my career, I have chatted with quite a few judges who sometimes see one parent who's pummeling the other parent in legal paperwork, using kids as weapons, and just making life hell for everyone. However, this is the big however, the majority of judges I've spoken with see the situation as a tug of war and that both parents are bad actors in this play. And sometimes I've had to say to judges, oh, no, that's not what's going on. But I've had judges tell me that they believe both parents are just doing rotten things and that the judge has to determine who's the least rotten. So in other words, one parent, the alienator, does something. This is how judges see it, guys. I'm not saying this is what it is, but how oftentimes they see it. And then the targeted parent reacts, this conversation, or this is my time, or, the ego-driven stuff. Normal, because this is how we would normally respond, but it's seen as equally awful. So it's like one reaction, other one reacts, says something, other one reacts. So the judges just see that the kids are caught in this tug of war. And although the targeted parent is only trying to stay relevant in their child's life, their responses to the alienator may not be perceived that way. Believe me, a judge will like it a lot better if during transfer all this yelling, screaming is going on. You just go, okay, gotta go. Come on, guys, get in the car. Even if the kids are fighting, come on, let's just get in the car. And instead of arguing back, because to the judges, I'm not saying it's true, but to the judges, they're like, you guys are doing all of this. The kids are sitting in the car, standing in the parking lot, running out into the street, running away from this while this is going on. So I hope these 3 ways to take your ego out is maybe something you've noticed that you're doing, or you see your alienated friend or sister or child is doing, so that you could just mention, hey, maybe this doesn't work. Again, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just responding normally to an abnormal situation. All right. So before I wrap it up, I want to talk about grandparents for a little second. And that is, out of all my clients, very often I have grandparents involved. And this is always heartbreaking, because most grandparents, they've never experienced this. Man, they don't understand how this can happen. They love their kids. They raise great kids. Their kids married somebody. They oftentimes accepted that child as another son or another daughter. And now the marriage didn't work, and their child is not seeing their children, and they don't know what to do. They're heartbroken. They're not seeing the grandkids. Their kids aren't seeing their child. So it's a double-edged sword. They're hurt. They have to watch their child be hurt. And all of us who are parents know you'd much rather take the pain than watch your child suffer. And sometimes grandparents are still talking to the children, so they want to become neutral. And they feel as though, well, maybe if I have a conversation with the child, my grandchild, they'll understand what's happening, because I'm neutral. I love their mom and I love their dad, or I love their dad and love their mom, whatever the scenario is. However, that neutral gets shared, whatever they say, maybe some of the 3 things I've already discussed, and then they mention it to the child. The child runs back to the alienating parent, and then before we know it, the grandparent's now cut out of the child's life. And that's really painful. So I understand that parents oftentimes want to help so desperately. And so they may say, guys, don't you see what your mom's doing? Like, your dad really loves you. My son really loves you guys. Just same suggestions for the targeted parent. Just enjoy the time with the children. Don't say anything, because you don't know how it's going to perceive. And you don't want your hurt feelings and your ego to come into it. So I hope this helped. We're going to wrap it up. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My name's Susan Shofer. My social media, my website is my name. And take care and have a great rest of your day.
On our next episode of Families Divided TV, Dr. Don Hubin answers the question, does shared parenting put domestic violence victims and children at risk?